what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We are on episode 119, and we are kind of doing an impromptu episode because we always kind of plan ahead of time when to meet, which we did that. And then all of a sudden we said, hey, let's meet now. We both got a free moment and stepped out to Studio B, and here we are recording via Zoom.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Isn't technology amazing? I know we talk about technology in different aspects, specifically to like the fitness realm, but it's so cool that we're able to connect and to do this in remote locations. It's awesome.
I agree. I love it. I obviously like, the most best when we're together, especially when we've been together and had guests in person have been amazing.
Yeah,
but
it's easier because like the one thing that we run into in some episodes, specifically where it's not, well, when we have you, myself, and another guest, when there's three of us, one of the things we run into is not like people talking over one another, but people trying to speak at the same time. And then there's kind of that awkward, no, you go, it's okay. Just because like, when you're with people, there's body language, facial expressions, and what people don't see is like when you and I record, when it's just us two, we are very, we do a lot of like gestures, and we have a lot of mannerisms, like where we're talking with our hands and speaking back and forth, and people don't see like the body language between us. And I mean, you hear all the time, I couldn't tell you the exact numbers, but the percentage of perception that, or the percentage of perception that is based on hand gestures, facial expressions, like the nonverbal, how the nonverbal things really relay the message more than what is actually said.
Right. I agree. I agree 100% with that.
One thing I've heard that's crazy too is they're talking about now, specifically in education, is how learning delay and a little bit of the deficits that we're seeing now in education that have stemmed from COVID, they're kind of linking it to masks being worn, in the sense that being unable to read facial expressions and how developmentally it's difficult on younger kids.
Yeah, I can see it, especially as being a father, the COVID crunch, so to speak. Whenever somebody's around that is wearing a mask, my daughter's body language changes.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't understand why she can't see somebody smiling or see them talking. She hears them and she doesn't she's not like scared, but she like, you can almost see the wheels in her head turning. Like, why can't I see her mouth? Like, why can't I see this person talk? And I can imagine that as kids get older, especially like the age range where you're teaching, a lot of that learning is done through really absorbing everything from down to the way you pronounce a word or explain with your facial expressions. I can imagine that it does affect kids' learning.
Well, I think the biggest thing too that I see is not just necessarily relatability, but you form more genuine relationships with people through like nonverbal cueing. And I feel like for me personally, there's instances when I know that my nonverbals are off. And even if I don't say anything, people can tell when I'm in a bad mood, or they can tell when I'm off my game, so to speak. And my students pick up on that. They're very receptive to those sorts of things. And I've noticed that one of the things I've been doing throughout my life is I've been trying to, and this is as of late, I've been trying to improve upon those things, like smiling at people when I pass them if I don't know who they are, or talking to people more regularly, or just being, I don't want to say animated, because it's not like I want to walk around flailing my arms and flapping around talking to people, but just try to connect with people more genuine. And I think that one of the things that accounts for a large majority of that connection and comfort is what your face looks like when you're speaking to them. Are you making direct eye contact? Like, are you an active listener? Because I know so many times that you know what it's like. I think we all do, is when you're talking to someone, and I'm guilty. Gosh, I'm guilty of this because I'm on my phone 24/7. I'm trying to multitask, where people will talk to me and there will be instances where I'm hearing them, but I'm not actually listening to them. And
right.
Like, I have one client in particular that he's called me out on it a couple of times. He said, "You're not even listening to me, are you?" And I said, "Nope, I'm not. I'm sorry. I will set my phone down. I will give you my full attention." So I think that the facial expressions are so huge, and there's something that I have. It's kind of funny that we brought that up. Like I told you, lately, I've been actually cognizant of that and genuinely trying to focus on what my facial expressions are, especially in a school setting when you're working with kids all day because of how receptive they are to every little nuance like that.
Right. I couldn't agree more.
And you know it right from like when you, for example, when you first meet someone, it's difficult if you catch someone on a bad day because then your immediate impression, even before they talk or before they introduce themselves or any type of dialogue exchange, the first thing you look at is someone's facial expressions and how their demeanor is. So
Right.
I'm someone
It,
who everything that I do is predicated on having good relationships
yeah.
with my students, good relationships with my clients and my athletes and all those sorts of things. So if a first impression is bad with a parent who brings their son or daughter in for training, then ultimately that could put a sour vision in their head of who I am, which is I hope that that's not the case.
Right. Exactly. And I relate to that a lot. So in my world of profession and operational safety, um, first impressions like career lasting. You walk up to a group of oil field guys who are set in their ways, and you start barking orders at them, and you have this look of I'm the boss, and you're going to do what I tell you to do. They shut down right now. You know what I mean? Like they shut the door. They don't care what you have to say. They're going to listen to you. They're going to acknowledge that you exist, but that's about as far as it goes.
Yep.
And then the approach that I take is I always have a smile on my face. I try to relate. I try to really be a part of what the situation that they're involved in, rather it be an incident or rather it just be a safety meeting that they just worked a long day and now I'm asking them to sit for another hour and listen to me ramble about safety facts. I try to have a smile on my face and relate to them and understand, that you have to get on, you almost have to get on people's level, like whatever it is, whether it be above yours or if you feel like it's below yours, either way, you need to get on their level and represent yourself in the way you want to be represented. So smile, be a nice person, be kind, that stuff goes a long way in my opinion. So if I had a mask on, you can't see the fact that I'm smiling or I have a smirk on my face. You know what I mean? Like you can't tell. So I guess that's my way of bringing it back is you always want to represent yourself a certain way. And, like you said, with kids wearing masks, like they have a hard time representing themselves because you don't know if they're smiling. You don't know if they're frowning. You don't know. You just don't know.
Well, and plus, like you said, there's times where the first impression can be long lasting, and we don't always have the opportunity to fix, so to speak, fix those first impressions. Sometimes
Right.
if you leave a poor lasting impression on someone, that's really all you're going to get going forward. And so that person thinks of you in a particular context for forever, which that could be not really affecting your life at all. But then there's also the chance that that could be very opportunistic or the opposite of opportunistic, where you could throw opportunity away if you make a bad
Right.
first impression on someone where down the road it could have led to something beneficial for you. So it's always better to go in with or try to go in with a positive demeanor. Like I'm a realist and know that that's not always possible. But it's also funny because sometimes, especially with me, where I do so many different things, I feel like people's opinions of me are highly varied. Now, everybody's like that to a degree. Like, I mean, I don't know anybody that thinks perfectly or thinks one particular way. Everybody thinks one particular way about someone. Depending on who you ask, some people say, yeah, he's a nice guy. Others say, no, he's a jerk. It really all depends. But I think that with my line of work, there's such a high degree of variance on because I work with so many different types of people. So I have to conduct myself different ways, like
Right.
how I am in the gym, how I am with my friends, how I am at school, how I am in an alternate professional setting. You have to kind of conduct yourself accordingly and know the room. And thinking back to like with education and first impressions and stuff, I mean, a funny story that kind of falls in line with this. We have a teacher who's she's a substitute teacher, a full-term substitute teacher at our school, and I train her son at the gym. Well, she and another teacher were talking, and she was reminiscing about the first time she had ever met me, and she was up in our fifth grade pod, subbing for the day. I can't remember where she was or what teacher she was in for, but regardless, she was recalling that the first time she had ever been up there and had any interaction with me, I couldn't even tell you what the incident was because I mean I was unable to get specifics. I obviously don't remember, but she said that I was blowing up and just screaming at a kid or a group of kids over something that had happened. And she said that she had never heard another human being scream like that in her entire life, which it's kind of ironic because one of the things that I try to be prideful in as well is composure. Not necessarily composure, because there's times when composure needs to come unglued, but the lengthy fuse. So,
Yes.
like, I have a lot of patience before suddenly I snap. Now, that could be a bad thing too, because that's led to me blowing up on people that I don't need to blow up on because I let it build, 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 build. And then, like I've said in other episodes, I take it out on the wrong people at times. So that's definitely detrimental to me and to my mental health sometimes. But regardless, in that instance, her first impression of me was probably, okay, that guy's some psychopath. And my goodness, he's got to have a short fuse because he's screaming at these poor kids or this poor kid or whatever the instance was. Whereas, again, ironically, it was the exact opposite of that. Like, I actually have a lengthy fuse, which was, I'm going to be willing to bet, was likely the impetus behind me blowing up. So
Right. Yeah.
first impressions are huge, man. I mean, that's why I think it's always important for people just to like, and again, another thing that I'm guilty of is, and it doesn't have to be in the sense professionalism. I think that's a misnomer. I don't want to use the word professional, but just how you carry yourself. And I'm not saying you got to get dressed up everywhere you go, because I mean, right now I'm out in public and I have joggers and a hoodie on, which is my attire that I wear literally 99% of the time when I'm not in school shirt and tie. But regardless, I think that like the way you carry yourself, again, that's like nonverbal stuff, right? Like how you dress,
Yes.
how you are you well kept. I'm not, again, not saying you got to be the greatest looking person on earth, but I think that that plays into people's psychology. Like one of the things
Yeah.
that
If you want,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, simple things like if you want somebody to have a good first impression of you, put a clean shirt on and have a fresh haircut. Rinse your mouth out with mouthwash before you walk into the said meeting.
Yes.
Because those are things that you can control for one, and for two, are long lasting.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes to get up in somebody's business and have a in person conversation with somebody with a stinky breath.
For sure.
So and I agree. I can't agree more that you need to make a good, long lasting first impression with people.
Well, I've said it before that one of the things that I combat on a somewhat regular basis is my perception when people come into the gym and for training for the first time, because the large majority of the people that I train are student athletes. So whether that's college athletes, high school athletes, middle school athletes, elementary kids, like I work with kids.
Yes.
And a lot of them, especially if they're not of college age, are coming in with their parents, and their parents are kind of the financial advisors in these types of situations because they're the ones paying for training and they're concerned with the well-being of their child. So rightfully so they should want to come in and meet their trainer. And I usually have contact before they come in the gym, because most people come into the gym for me via social media. So they see the stuff on social media and then they want to meet me in person. Very rarely have I had many clients that stem from just showing up at the gym saying, "Hey, we want a trainer, who you got?" But so when they come in, the first visual impression of me is some guy walking around in bare feet in a public place, because
Yeah.
I train myself barefoot and I train my athletes. And when I'm working, I'm completely barefoot too. And I'm not talking like the occasional people you'll see walking around the gym in socks or minimalist shoes. I'm literally barefoot. Like there's nothing on my feet, which has the potential to gross people out. Most people by this point in our gym have asked me about it and why I do it. And so they completely understand the anatomy and the performance benefits behind it. But I mean, think about it. If you're bringing your kid and you have no knowledge of the gym in terms of like structural anatomy or performance enhancement or whatever, and you bring your child to the gym and you meet this trainer at the gym, and the trainer's walking around the gym in a public gym with his bare feet hanging out and walking all over the place, it looks kind of weird. And then, if I go out to the car with them or I go out to their vehicle and like as they're leaving, I walk out of the gym barefoot as well. And I'm walking outside barefoot. Now, for you and I, that's just regular stuff. But for people, there's kind of that perception. So one of the things that I always have to combat is like, hey, I'm not some weirdo hippie who's just walking around in bare feet. There's actually specific anatomical reasons why I'm doing this. And genuinely people are interested because I tell them I can go on the short version of why I'm barefoot, or you want the long version. And an overwhelming majority of the time they ask for the long version. So I go into specifics about how I used to be, I used to have flat feet, and I tried the orthotics route when I was younger. And then down the road as an adult, as I got more into strength training, I developed some orthopedic issues that stem from the flat feet and blah, 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 blah. And so they're really, really genuinely interested in it. And then there's also the hidden benefit of I get to toot my horn a little bit. It's kind of like a knowledge flex. Like,
Yeah.
this guy's running around in bare feet. He even has reasons why he's bare. He's that serious about performance as a man in his 30s that he's walking around everywhere barefoot. He's probably going to do wonders for my kid who's an athlete.
Right.
So it's kind of
I get
there
it
too, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, hey man, that seems like a good spot to go to a commercial break. So we'd like to probably get some training updates here soon because we haven't really touched on that much. So let's go to a quick commercial break and we'll talk more about some training updates when we come back. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we're back from our commercial break. All right, Justin, prior to the break, we talked a lot about facial expressions and hand gestures and nonverbal cueing and meeting someone for the first time and how those first impressions can be long lasting. And I think we should get into some training updates because it's surprising to me, and I've mentioned this before, but it's amazing that people that actually care or vocalize that they care about our training updates, because that's one of the things that's kind of like a regular part of the podcast is us giving transparency into what we're doing and having fitness undertones being a large chunk of our production here. We want to let people know what we're doing in the gym, how we're doing it, why we're doing it. And there seems to be a lot of people that are genuinely interested in things like that. Whereas originally when we started doing, I didn't think that people would really care about how much you bench, how much you squat, what your training is like. But I think it gives some people some insight into some like problem solving around their own programming.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I know I've personally went back and listened to some of our stuff just to get inspiration to fix a problem area of my own personal training. So I can imagine that other people, and I know actually of a few people that listen to it pretty much solely for the training updates.
Now for us, just for, I guess, for new listeners who maybe this is number 119 for normal listeners or regular listeners, but this is episode 1 for you. The majority of what you and I do is strength training based. So
yes,
obviously we dabble in some other things, like you've had a history of dabbling in some endurance sports. Me training athletes, I do a lot of functional performance might be the word, just athletic types of training, sprinting, jumping, movement mechanics, all those types of things. But mainly what we do is strength training with the intention of eliciting physique changes. So
yes,
we train to be strong, to build muscle, to look better, not necessarily train strong just to be strong. The strength, the being strong is kind of an added benefit to what we do. So
right.
You and I, one of the things we've done lately is, and it was really weird because you and I talked about it off the ear. One of the exercises that I grew up doing with a ton of regularity was deadlifts. For whatever reason, I seemed naturally inclined to it when I was younger. When I first started lifting in high school, I was decent at it. And I just got better and better, and I enjoyed doing it. So I would do deadlifts almost in an ill-advised, well, I shouldn't say almost, definitely in an ill-advised sense. Like in college, I remember we'd max out deadlift 3 times a week. And it was just, there was no rhyme or reason. There was no percentages, no particular programming. We would literally just go into the gym, work up by singles as heavy as we could, and then do some type of crazy rep scheme after. So like we would work up to singles, just add, as much weight as we possibly could. And then we would maybe cut that in 50% and go till failure, do some type of like burnout on the deadlift, which was horrible. And again, when you're doing that 3 times per week, your recovery's not optimal. But we did get stronger at the deadlift. I'll say that. So that was one of the foundational cornerstones of my training growing up, and then transition into your fitness journey, for lack of a better phrase. You kind of started in the gym, then kind of went more barbaric route, especially with your new home gym, where you were doing all of your training at home. Well, one of the easiest things, one of the first purchases you have to buy is you have to buy a bar and you have to buy weights. And I know that you were doing deadlifts for a long time too, with a decent amount of regularity, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I do a lot of deadlifts and a lot of, when I was especially training at home by myself, I would do a lot of deadlifts and started to do a lot of like start with a deadlift and then do a snatch, and then also farmer's carry with a trap bar, which it starts off and ends with a deadlift. So, yeah, I do a lot. Especially training at home, it's one of the easiest motions, like you said, to do at home. And deadlifts to me are comparable almost to squats, where like they work your whole body.
Yep.
So I love them. I hate them, but I love them.
It's a love-hate relationship, which funny you said that. I have a client that I was setting up some programming for, just a one-time consultation for his training. And we had deadlifts in there, and he messaged me after, because usually when I write one-time program with people, I usually have several weeks of communication with them just to make sure they understand it. And they're picking up on the cues that I want them to pick up on. It's not just simple as writing them a training program and having them go. So I stay in contact with them for a couple weeks after. He had texted me and said, he said, I absolutely hate deadlifts, but I forget the exact phrase. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he said that he has a love-hate relationship with them, essentially, because he loves the benefits, but he hates doing them.
Right.
So you and I got away from him for a period of time. I was doing rack pulls for a while, and there was no reason why I got away from deadlifts. I honestly just, I don't know. When you do your own programming, you do different exercises, and you kind of rotate those exercises every couple months. At least that's how I structure it. And I just didn't rotate them in much, but I never thought much of it because I was squatting. I've never taken a barbell squat out of a rotation. So when you're barbell squatting, especially on a push-pull leg split, I'm training legs probably about twice a week, maybe 3 times every 2 weeks. So I'm barbell squatting very often, so I don't need a lot of deadlifts. But the funny thing that I was getting around to saying is that I was thinking for a period of time, man, I'd like to work some deadlift back in, because squat was starting to stall for a little bit, and I was squatting more wasn't the issue. It's not that I just had to continue to squat more frequently or heavier load or anything like that. It was the issue. I felt like there was some accessory work that needed addressed, or some, obviously nutrition. Just have to continue to eat more and get bigger, that your squat's going to go up. But I thought, man, I really need to get into deadlifts. And I think, didn't you text me or call me or something? And then you brought it up, actually.
Yeah, we were talking about, we had a back day last week, and I had messaged you like I do almost every night. Hey, what's tomorrow? We doing back, we doing legs, whatever. And you said back. I said, what do you think about doing some deadlifts? And it was like, yes, let's go.
That was so like fate having its way, because like I was saying, I mean, I had planned for probably a couple weeks now. I'm like, I want to get deadlifts back in. I want to program them back in. And it was hard because I think we did we do sets of 8?
It was dumb. Yeah.
So we did sets
we worked
of 8.
up to, yep.
It doesn't seem like a lot, because a set of 8 is typical for certain movements, but you have to think about load you're using, number one, and the number of, what I break it down to is the number of joints or muscles that are being utilized. So if you're doing a curl, it's a single joint movement and just going through elbow flexion and extension. So you're just curling the dumbbell up. Doing 8 reps on a dumbbell curl is not taxing to the whole system. It's only taxing to your bicep, maybe your forearm, that sort of thing. Whereas when you're doing a deadlift, you're using upper, lower body, your grip strength. There's so much systemic stress happening as a result of the deadlift that 8 reps kills you if you're using appropriate load. So what we did,
I think we did like 12 sets or something crazy.
We did a lot, because we started with, our gym has bumper plates, and we threw on like a 25-pound bumper plate. So literally 95 pounds. And we did that for 8, because the group of us, the 4 of us that train together, none of us had done deadlifts for a long period of time.
Right.
So it was kind of like, oh, let's work our way back in this. And then we did sets of 8, and just it was very slow weight progression. So I think we did like 95 pounds to start, just a 25 on each side of the bar. And then we did like 115, because I think we added a 10, and then maybe did 135, and then 155, and then maybe 185, and 205, 225. So we just kept doing set and set and set and set after 8 reps, 8 reps, 8 reps, with really the only rest we had in between was for the other 4 to go. So like the second someone would set it down, the other person would jump in. So there was very minimal rest, and just for no other reason other than you started it and we all just kind of followed suit. You grabbed an easy curl bar, and we started doing 8 reps of bar curls in between. So we were curling. So really it wasn't even, it was like active rest. So like,
Yeah.
the thing about me was I was getting out of breath doing them.
I
My
was
cardio
too.
was just
Honestly, towards
packed.
the end, I was like, "Woo!"
And then just to be extra stupid, we decided to top it off with singles, because I think that we worked up by sets of 1 afterwards. I was pretty, I guess I was probably the least stupid of the stupid ones. So all 4 of us were dumb, but I was probably the least dumb, where I capped my ceiling a little bit conservatively, where one of those like, oh yeah, I could do more, but I think I'm going to call it right here because I am toast.
I did not. I ended up. I mean, I burned out really fast compared to Chad and Trevor, but I my top set was like 385, or it might have been 405. I think it was 385.
Mhm.
But after all the volume, I was like, I can't even. There's just no way. I couldn't even try. I think I did try 405 actually afterwards, and that's when I said I'm done.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was rough. It was good though, and I look forward to adding it into at least every other back workout. I think
The
would be
only,
awesome.
I love deadlifts. The only thing that's tough is my favorite lift is the squat. I
Yeah,
just,
mine
it's
too.
always,
Now,
and it's not even that I'm a great squatter. I think that I'm a very good squatter in terms of how my squat looks and what my technique is, but I'm not one of those people that has just like this genetically elite squat where I can squat tons and tons of weight. I just really enjoy doing it. So when I squat twice a week, if you're throwing in deadlifts there, it really takes away, at least if it's every week, it kind of takes away from your recovery in terms of
yeah,
being prepared to squat heavy the next week. At least for me, it does. So I kind of have, and I think maybe that's why I ended up getting away from deadlifts. I don't really know. Maybe that was why I started to kind of push them to the wayside a little bit. Not sure, but
yeah. I
regardless,
know
delving
exactly
back
why
in,
I quit.
you had some orthopedic concerns, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
I had that my nagging hip injury, and it's not like really an injury. I think it's just like you said, orthopedic concern because of all the weight that I carried for so long. And when I first started lifting by myself, I had very poor form, so I caused my lower back to have some issues. Um, so yeah, I my deadlift my deadlift relationship, it wax and wanes.
Mhm.
As orthopedic health is good, I'll deadlift and squat. When it's bad, I substitute.
Well, I think that when you look at those two movements too, squat and the deadlift, you're very hip heavy because you're going into a hip hinge. So there's a lot of
Yep.
stress on the ESG, the erector spinae group. Your spinal erector is basically your low back. And I think that it's an exercise that can be the greatest thing for your back or the worst thing your back, and it's all about execution. It's kind of
Yep.
like the old saying, what's the difference between medicine and poison? It's the dose.
Yep.
So it's not, I mean, things can be used to cure, and the same thing can be used to poison you and kill you. It's just all about how high the dosing is. And I think that that is the same can be said about squat and deadlift, is those can be unbelievable movement patterns with a barbell for kind of getting resiliency in the body, like having your body be able to create more bone density, having your lower back be stronger and more durable. And anytime you have a lot of muscle tissue built up, or like when there's hypertrophy occurring around a specific joint or muscle, or the more muscle you have around that joint, the more supportive it's going to be, which
Right.
is likely going to end up mitigating some pain that you might have. However, that's predicated on perfect execution. if you're
Yeah.
executing the deadlifts poorly or you're executing the squat poorly, it can be one of the worst exercises for your low back.
Yeah.
So it really,
I
really depends
always,
on execution.
yeah. And I was going to say, I always encourage somebody before you scrap the squat and the deadlift out of your routine because of pain to consult a trainer or somebody who, it doesn't even have to be a trainer. I mean, obviously that's the route I take. Is one of my best friends is the best trainer in the valley. So it's, super simple for me.
Hashtag thank you. Hashtag shameless.
But, consult a trainer or watch the people around you that are squatting, right?
Yeah.
And deadlifting and see the people that have good form and can go really heavy and go say, hey, man, do you mind looking at my form and fixing it? Like, I think that's the biggest thing with the gym world where people get discouraged so fast. And it's like, just ask for help. Everybody there has asked somebody for help at some point.
Correct.
So we all are willing to help somebody in some way, even if you don't have a whole lot of knowledge. If somebody asks you for it, give it to them because I guarantee you asked at some point. So,
well, and then there's a little bit of responsibility on the people you're asking to be able to guide you in the direction that you need to go, or at the very least not overstep your boundaries. So I talk about that all the time as a trainer. And I think that with Austin Culver, which was episode 116, maybe
16. Yep.
So when I was talking to him, because he's a trainer as well, one of the things that I mentioned, I believe it was him we were talking to, when I said that I don't overstep my boundaries as a trainer. I don't pretend to be a physical therapist. I don't pretend to be an orthopedic surgeon or a doctor or anything like that. So I'm always pretty good in my own estimation about outsourcing to people. So if I asked a question, I don't know, I'm going to say, hey, you should consult this guy. He's really, really good, blah, 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 blah. And I send them in that direction. So because sometimes when you're asking questions, at least especially if you're new to the gym, you don't know who to ask. Just because, and like you said, this is the route you take because of your and I's relationship, but just because you ask a trainer doesn't mean he's a good trainer, and it doesn't mean that he has the right answers. So I think it's important for us. That's kind of like a life lesson that's unrelated to the topic we're really talking about, is don't try to overstep your boundaries. Just stay in your lane, know what you're capable of in terms of providing advice to other people, and stick there.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that's, go ahead.
I was just going to say, moving on to other updates, but no, if you had something else to add, please.
Nope. Please. Nothing important. Just would prolong the conversation. So please go ahead.
So I guess moving into other updates, squatting, I had got, I think we talked about it, last week or the week before, where I hit a personal best ever, which has been a huge milestone for me. I squatted 405 and I got to the point where now I can go parallel, and actually now I can go a little below parallel, which is impressive for me because I've never been able to. I'm not even in high school. I couldn't squat parallel. And it wasn't, and in high school, it wasn't because I had my body habit was preventing me to. I just physically could not make my brain allow me to take a load below parallel. I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which, let me provide context there too, because I think this is important and key. You could, in terms of flexibility, you are one of the most flexible people I've ever met in my life, which
thank you.
Most people probably would not assume that.
Right.
But when I was working for my straddle split, I remember one time I was at your house and you said, you can't do a straddle split. And you stood up from the lawn chair. We were out in your front yard and you literally just jumped into a split, and a perfect straddle split with legs perfectly out the side. And I was like amazed because I knew you were flexible, but you had a lot of flexibility. So for you to try to get parallel, it was also kind of a mobility concern, or it's what, like, the key is you said under load. So like is in again, provide more context. You were never using inappropriate load. It's like you even at lighter weights. So there was either some severe weakness going on, or some bracing or some technique issue that you had that was kind of it was making it difficult for you to go down, because you have the mobility to be able to do it through the hips, through the hamstrings, through the Achilles tendon, good range of motion. Otherwise, especially good example would be your leg press.
Yeah. I could go my knees to my chest, basically.
Yeah. Very, very fluid, nice hip abduction, everything checked out. So Now it's just a matter of trying to elicit that through the squat.
And we have gotten to the point now where, like in the past, I very rarely would ever share videos of my squat because I was embarrassed of them because I'm a big guy. I should be able to squat. I've been carrying around 526 pounds for years.
Yep.
I should be able to squat, and I couldn't. Like my squat was so ugly. Like I think I look back, and one of the only squats I ever shared in the past was, I did a stint at a different gym by myself, and it was 335 pounds, and it was not even remotely deep. Like it wasn't even close to parallel.
Uh-huh.
And then now to jump forward a year and only be working on it for so short a time to be able to do 405 and get to parallel, I'm like, I really enjoy it.
Yes.
So, and looking to go forward, I want to go bigger. I like to get weight. I'd like to get my legs and lower body strength even stronger. So, that was what I was getting to. Was I got bold and messaged you one day and said, "What do you think about squatting every day?" Changing it up, obviously, lightweight, heavyweight, low reps, high reps, or low weight, low reps, low weight, high reps, just different schemes, but throwing in a little bit of the squat every day just for muscle memory.
Yes.
I think I got a little overzealous because I tried it and it burned me out pretty quick. So I think I'll stick to our normal rotation.
Well, I can say from personal experience that I did squat every day for a period of time. And the biggest benefit that I noticed was how comfortable the movement itself became for me. So
that is true.
From a joint perspective, my knees, my hips, they felt unbelievable, the greatest I've ever felt. But I also had enough awareness and perception to be able to use appropriate load, appropriate rep scheme. Because originally, I think when you text me, you asked about undulating your load and reps, and you said, some days do high reps, some days do heavyweight, or you said some days do heavyweight, low reps, other days do low rate, high reps. And I think I said, well, there may be some days you need to do low weight, low reps.
That's what you said.
The muscle memory of getting into the motor pattern, but also you're going to be taxed. Like I remember watching Chris Duffin, Kabuki Strength. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Some of the listeners probably are. He's a professional powerlifter, owns a powerlifting brand, I guess. Like they make equipment, and he has the Duffalo bar, which is like his specialty bar. Well, anyway, Chris Duffin had I want to say that I'm getting the numbers correctly. I know it was 800, but he went on this thing where this program this plan where he squatted 800 pounds, at least 800 pounds every day for a month.
Oh,
yeah. Wild.
Oh,
like I can't even, well, being a somewhat normal human being, I can't even imagine what 800 pound squat feels like, period. Let alone
that's Ronnie Coleman strong.
Yeah. To do that every day consecutively for a month is just, it's really it's outside of the realm of what I can conceptualize. I can't even create the thought process in my head to begin to empathize with what that's like. It's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even I can't even wrap my mind around. I can't even wrap my mind around doing a 405 squat every day for a month.
Yes. Yes.
Even if I worked up to a heavy single and did one single 405 rep, I don't think I could do it every day for a month.
Mm-mm. Now, obviously, this guy's an elite level power lifter and has world records, I believe, and stuff. So it's gotten to that point, but God, how impressive is that?
That's amazing, actually. Yeah.
So that's pretty much it from training updates, I think, on our end. I mean, you've hit some pretty impressive numbers that are lifetime PRs for you. So you're definitely getting stronger. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to keep the one in the bag until we get to the elusive number that I've been chasing forever. So we'll keep that one under the wraps for a while.
Now, would that be the one that's 20 pounds heavier or the one that's 35 pounds heavier?
I believe that one would be the 35 pounds heavier.
Is it a meal deal?
Yes, that would be the one.
That's what I thought, because there's another milestone before that.
Yeah.
It's funny because people have absolutely no idea what we're talking about.
And I hopefully in the next 3 months they'll be like, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Justin's away from a little bit away from a very, very impressive lifetime PR milestone on a certain exercise. So I guess that gives him something to have suspense about as we go
To
forward.
ruminate on.
Yeah, there you go. Think about what it might be. Maybe even in the coming episode, we can do a contest to see what exercise it is and what the weight is, and see if someone, a listener, can guess it.
And if they do, we'll reveal it. How about that?
That sounds good. Here, let's just do the challenge now. What prize can we get? Can we give a prize? We can give a prize. I just don't know what the prize is.
Either maybe a Chasing Dreams shirt or a different guy, another brand that I know of that's fantastic. Could give one of them shirts, or
let's do that. Yeah. Just because I have the availability, because I'm dialoguing back and forth, and I just put in an order for new No Excuse Nation, which for those that don't know is my training brand. So we'll give.
It is the only training brand, in my opinion.
How about we do this? How about we give a Chasing Dreams t-shirt and a No Excuse Nation t-shirt? So you get both.
Ooh.
If you message Justin or myself or contact us somehow, and you guess what Justin's exercise is going to be, or what exercise we're talking about, what lift we're talking about, and what milestone he is approaching. I'll give you a hint. It's not the squats. We already touched on that. It's not deadlifts because we just started redoing those. So those are two of the millions of choices you could have. If you guess correctly what the lift is and what weight he's approaching, we will give you 2 free t-shirts. You get No Excuse Nation t-shirt and a Chasing Dreams podcast t-shirt.
Sounds like a plan.
Perfect, man. That pretty much wraps it up, I suppose, huh?
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 119. As always, we appreciate your listenership, and we look forward to hearing back from you guys next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge.